Stream is now running, and I have a few sets from them. Just gonna communicate with them a little bit and get the replay codes in too. One of the biggest things with the 52L is, at the moment, it is the only short-range shooter with Splash Wall. The only other shooter with Splash Wall is Squeezer. And aside from that, it's just Big Swig and Gluga Dolly. Gluga just doesn't have really the paint output or the like RNG at mid-range. So it generally gets outclassed by either Squeezer if you want something with a wall at mid-range, or Sloshing Machine with Booyah. So Gluga you don't usually see, Big Swig you don't usually see. So it's really just Squeezer, which is sort of niche, and Gao, which is less niche, but still not quite the T-Tech or Splash that you see with like a very low skill floor. There's a lot of intricacy with using Killer Whale and using Splash Wall to stay alive and spacing around it, because you don't have the range of the Squeezer. So, yeah. Hello, Tiger. I see you're in chat now and sort of listening to me explain your weapon to those who are not that familiar. But I don't actually know how many people are watching this or are going to be, but, you know. Yeah. So, as this is in the title, these are just a few different games from sets of Swimmer Sync, the weekly tournament on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, run by IPL. So, yeah, these should definitely be interesting because they are in a tournament setting. There'll be less experimenting from the opponent and probably from Tiger's own pickup as well, because you're playing to win, so you're not going to go something like 3 Splatonas and a Tetra, right? Definitely not speaking from experience. Okay. Alright, that was inevitable. It's R813, not 4. Okay. Okay. We'll just watch this in the order that you gave them. So, Starburst Brand's here. Kobath, I know. I think I've heard of at least Singura and Safra. Might be a Div 14, not sure. But we will begin here. Okay. Just looking at comps. Tri-Stringer is going to be important. Tri-Stringer with Gal is definitely important. Play a lot of 52. Yeah, I definitely agree. You're likely already aware of it, but I think Wall also helps Gal to sort of move into fights that it would that like something like a T-Tech or a Splash would otherwise die in. You can use the Splash Wall to sort of give yourself a health barrier to stay up front just a little bit longer. So it can still be used offensively like that, but in general, yeah, it can be really useful defensively as well, like swimming backwards and throwing a wall as you swim there. So you paint up the right flank, don't actually commit. Fair enough. I think of the weapons to go right side though, Gal's one of the better ones. Okay. You're trying to poke here, but one, you don't have wall up and there's a heavy watching you. There was also someone top left, so I don't know if poking here is all that effective. If you want to poke in some place like this, generally having a wall will be really helpful, because it is sort of unsafe. And you have the ink tank for it. The Waybreaker is out, so you eventually back up. Okay, actually I want to look over that again. So here you're pushing up on left side, but it is a bit too unsafe. You don't quite have the paint that you want, so you back up. The main thing that happens here is you immediately start moving up on right side, before you before you see it's safe. The only ones up front on right side are Junior and T1ger's. So if, say, their shot rushes them, which they did, or they just throw bombs, you didn't really look for that at first. You didn't know what was happening on right side. So I think moving up here was just a bit too unsafe because you weren't looking over on right. You were looking on left at first. So I really think that the like recognizing that you didn't use wall and then backing up was fair. But moving up immediately after you back up on one side probably isn't the best idea, just because if the opponent's pushing one area, that's not the only area they're aggressing. They have 4 players. So, yep. And also you have a Waybreaker up, so that should give you a bit more... I think because of the Waybreaker, you might have been a bit more hasty to make use of it, but... Yeah, Waybreaker stays out for a while. You have time with it. And so, especially dying at start when you were sort of halfway to whale, not the greatest. But it happens, so. You painted this earlier, but the fact that you painted the rest of it shows that, like, if they were aware of it, then they still would catch you here. Because you didn't do like the squid roll to the right flank. That's just a minor thing though. Usually people don't, well, sometimes there's someone watching this area, so it's just something to keep in mind. If you have it painted, then you don't need to reveal that you're there until you actually make the jump. Oh, but one other thing. You see your teammates are being aggressive on left side. I see the suction bomb, so that has to be splatter shot. So they're being aggressive on left. You have a wall that can help them out a lot there. The Tri-Stringer is able to slow them down with mist, and the Junior with torpedoes, but they can't really aggress. That's your job and the Tri's job. And the Tri was already aggressing mid. So if you were on left side, then you could have pushed up with them. There was a decent amount of time where you were sharking on right side. And when sharking, you're not getting paint, you're not getting special, you're not taking fights or taking space. So just something to keep in mind. If your team has like safe positioning to clear a space in front of you, it can sometimes be worth it to use the wall there. Because I think, like, especially with Gal, the reason why you use Gal over any other shooter is because it has the ability to take up fights relatively safely with the wall. So it's a huge part of its gameplay. If you're not using the wall, then you might as well choose something like T-Tech, which is more ink efficient, more accurate when jumping, and just gets a lot better paint down. Yeah, and I guess the last thing is usually flanks like this on right side work when they're already being, like, when they don't notice you and aren't like sort of if they're being aggressed from one side, then having the flank compounds on that exponentially. But if they're not being aggressed, then it's essentially just one person going in, but now from a different angle. So you got to trade there, but because they had so much more ink paint control in mid, I don't think you flanking is the goal of this team comp. I think it's really the try that wants to flank. Okay. I'm gonna try to go a bit faster since this is taking a little bit. Yeah, that's just the thing of like, if you want to stay on top right, then wall can be really helpful there. I think there should be enough space on Museum to throw it onto the grates. So it's like deciding if you want to drop down or not. At least personally, as a shooter, I always watch this grate because usually some backline tries to stay here. And so like even though I might not expect a Slayer to be there, I can adapt pretty quickly and sort of punish them for being on an uninkable surface. So you still a Q starts on safe lane comp. Yeah, I just think that like flanks as a 52 probably don't work as well either because if you flank and get one, like that's great, but there's never one person that you're flanking. If there is, then you can flush them out with a 2v1 from up front. So you're going to be flanking multiple people, and then your RNG goes down very quickly as Gal. So like the first two shots are 100% accurate, and then it quickly goes down. So it's often just not worth it to like try to fight multiple people at once if you're the only person fighting them. And because like your weapon isn't as good as something like a splash or a shot at that role, it shouldn't be the one flanking as much as something like a try, which has like no shot spread. Yeah. And I guess even in solo, like I'm sort of looking at all of this with the idea of everyone sort of playing their, or I guess, I find a decent amount of similarity between, like comp and solo. Like more than you'd initially expect. There's a lot that you can gain from like being aware, oh, my teammates are pushing left and there's one person there, they can't really flush it out. I'll help them with that. And so like a lot of awareness you can learn from solo, and like sort of new stuff to watch out for. The main thing with that jump is it doesn't give you that much more space. And if the inkstick was aimed at the stringer, then it could have picked you off, and made it so there's a lot more time before you get whale. So, especially if you're like in disadvantage, be very careful about jumping in. I'd suggest just swimming in every time, especially if you have like halfway to special. But yeah. I like that you use whale on multiple people, since generally 3 doesn't change that much from 2 sets of whale looking at someone, so I like this. You're also going with the teammates, so that's good. That's probably just pickup. Y'all didn't know who was going top, who wasn't, so you thought, I'm going to go the way that the other person isn't. They're not going to go top, right? And then you both go top. It's sort of like throwing the bomb and a fly fish in the same spot, but you got the pick, so still good. Yeah. Honestly, I'd attribute that to like... I need to figure out a term for this. But it's like... essentially you get a pick, and then you're like, okay, they're one down, that's huge, that's huge. I'm going to go up front and try to hit more of them. I see the shot, I'm going to start hitting it. while also being completely unaware that on your left there is yellow paint, on your right there is yellow paint, in front of you there is also yellow paint. You are surrounded. So I guess it's like, especially in situations like this where it's a tight corner, just be very slow is usually the play. Even if you get one initially, like you get one of them, but there's still three of them that are very like they have resources, they have map control, and so they're still able to take 2v1s because they're in the position to push. I mean, I have a habit too of like if I get one, I sometimes just hold forward and then get picked off. But yeah, it's something to keep in mind. So not much else to say about it. So your Treasure Stringer is trying to set up very aggressively on top mid, right? Yep. I like that you try to aggress the heavy for it while your teammates are on the right side. Yep. That was a good target to take. I think just you and the Tri-Slasher sort of left the Junior alone on right. So and then going 2 down using a whale, just a bit too preemptive. And like I think you might have had the idea of like, after I pressure this heavy back, I'm going to whale and start moving right side. But okay. I want to find the moment that happened. So right now you're still with the Junior. You go right with the try. The Junior popped a wave break. So right now the Junior's with you because they see you up front and they see that you have space taken. And there's a wall, so they're probably expecting you to stay there as a Slayer to help out. And then you sort of leave the Junior alone here. There was a lot that you could have taken with the like Junior support on right side, so being aware of like when teammates are with you and like one, not abandoning them, and two, just using them as sort of cover for taking more space. Since the Tri-Stringer is also on top mid, there's a huge amount of space you can take on right side. Because you saw the arrows as well from the Tri-Stringer. There's like it's already pressuring the heavy because it wins in a 1v1 against it. Yeah. And I think the whale sort of just shows like teammate awareness was sort of faltering there because you didn't see that you were 2 down. So yeah. Especially the like positioning of your Junior is huge. You don't want them to be alone up front, but you can also do so much if you're with them. Still have a whale up, but 2 down, so it's understandable what you say about it. Oh wow. Okay. That was a little laggy, but yeah, pretty good. Sure, you go right with the Junior, so that's good. Yeah, just aggressing with wall and making sure like shooters have the ability to move around very quickly when a bomb happens. So like painting your feet if you want to move around quickly, especially with Gal, is probably helpful because it doesn't paint its feet that much. Definitely not as much as like a splash. It's not that your positioning is not good. It's mostly just like, so like here you go up a bit too far into sort of neutral to enemy territory. Without like the support of your junior aside from uh weight rigger. So this is really having, yeah, it's sort of about like how fast you take space. I think you're trying to take space a bit too quickly, but especially with Gal, it's sort of a slow and methodical approach, especially with a splash wall. Especially because Gao doesn't have like a bomb to pressure people out of corners. You sort of have to rely on your teammates' bombs or here your double mist to put people into areas where you can pick them off, or like the junior's torpedo. So your explosiveness really comes from your teammates and you being with them to push up. Aside from that, you sort of want to play solo a lot more patiently, I think. Right now, it's still like yeah, you sort of went into two. First you were close to whale. Here's good enough. Yeah, so dropping down here is fine. You have a lot of paint here. I think stopping around here to get a bit more space. I think it's like, yeah, playing around your team and playing around like where exactly the enemy has ink, because they can be sharking there. For instance, that T-Tech. They were at the very edge of your at the very edge of their paint. And because you just respawned, they saw you dropping down, and you haven't really shot, so you're probably coming closer to them. And so yeah, especially with Splash Wall, if someone's in front of you, you can just slowly like force them out with wall, and like use the tip of your range. Since if you're against something like a junior, then you can outrange it. And then with the splatter shot and 10 attack, it's really nice to be able to, if you see that you can't win a fight just yet, you can back up and wait for a better moment. But if you move to like the very edge of their ink, then there's a lot more time that the enemy can sort of aggress you before you're out of their range. And so it's a lot more committal of a play to go to the edge of the ink for that. And so I think like committing to areas and, well, committing to aggressing an area versus just holding it down is a pretty big thing that I'm noticing. I like you pressuring there. But then as soon as your try starts moving up on left to help you, you back up. Here it's sort of like teammate awareness of teammate going up and you're not sort of with them. But let's also sort of look at that again. So right here, they're splatter shots, so they're on that left ledge. Right here, they can't shoot you. If they try to get closer, then they have to swim towards you, and so you have a winning fight. The heavy isn't close enough to actually pressure you here, so this positioning is relatively safe. Especially since, wow, 2 mists. That's what you get with a double mist comp. But yeah, so I don't think even if your try wasn't going up on left, I don't think you had to give up this area at all on left. Because your teammates already have snipe control, and left is still being contested. And one of Gal's best strengths is contesting areas. I really like you going up here. I think, yeah. So like here you saw someone, okay, here you saw someone throw a bomb on right side, so they're clearly wanting to pressure right side. And then you sort of leave it for just your stringer to handle. So like they're still mostly able to get paint control on right side. I can see you wanting to support your try on left, but one of the big things about Museum is if the try keeps holding forward into their base, they will meet you on right side. And so you can sort of just hold right alone because you have a wall, you're pretty safe with that. The try is under a ledge, so it's going to be fantastic there. And because there's no one to pressure the T-Tech from right side, because you went from right to left, the try gets 2v1'd. And so I think that was partly like... Yeah, I think Gal can hold spaces a lot better than you're playing. Like, I think you're... I mean that in the sense that it feels like you're either backing up a lot or going fully to the edge of your own ink to paint. It's sort of like what it reminds me of like a sploosh, sort of, because like splooshes generally don't have the range, so they have to be up front, like on the opponent, in order to actually fight them. Otherwise, they generally stay back. I can definitely see playing scared. But yeah, I think it's like if they're not necessarily aggressing you and you're not aggressing them, then it's valid to just like hold a space and just start painting, because that gives you more complete control of an area. Okay, so now you're all up. The whale is coming out. Your whale is coming out. They gotta pick with it, so... Yeah, that's why I really like this push up into them, because there was a teammate's whale helping you forward, and you were able to get a lot of paint out with the pick, and so this is pretty good. You peeked a corner before painting it, though, so just be aware of that. Yeah. Unfortunate just tunnel visioning for Rainmaker for a little bit there. Yeah, then that was just an early grab. I think you were getting the positioning to push in, But one of the main things I want to note is look at all the paint in mid. Like, the middle of the map is mostly yellow still. I know it was near the end of the game, but I just feel like you weren't painting that much. And I think that's sort of a derivative of you either like backing up so that you can't paint any new ground, versus being at the edge of your ink just to pick someone off, and then essentially using the paint that you get after you splat someone to move up into your next target. So I think there's definitely like a balance or middle ground there that Gal fits pretty well into. That's like it sort of like stays at the like where the edge of its range touches opponent ink, but it's still pretty solidly in its own like area, if that makes sense. Like its own color of ink. Tetra flings this Latana. This is an interesting comp. Okay. So, I want to talk about this positioning here. You have Orbism on left side already, the junior. There's a lot of paint up front and mid and top right that isn't really on. The E-leader's also been picked off here. And you sort of just stay in mid until the leader respawns. Or sorry, you stay on left stack. Yeah, that was definitely interesting positioning from the Tetra. But I think, like, if Gal gets rushed, it's sort of volatile and essentially a 50-50 as to whether you'll pick them or they'll pick you. Because the weapon doesn't really have many ways to, like, get out of a situation, I guess. So, like, Burst Bomb can help splash a lot, for example. Splat Bomb can help chargers. Machine has, like, Fizzy and AoE that helps it. Gao doesn't really have tools like that. Or like a dodge roll out for dualies. But what it does have is wall, which really helps it like sort of hold areas that are otherwise unsafe. So I think as far as Gal's concerned, if someone pushes up on left side, it might not be that helpful. I wonder how you might do on this map if you push like the middle of the map or right side with splash wall, because those are pretty flat areas that Gal might do decently in. Okay, there are 2 down. Jumping's good. Good pick. What if that was sort of a case of jumping? So like here, you still don't know what's happening on right stack. You haven't looked there in a little bit, since you just dealt with the Tetra on left. And so you sort of move up there expecting it to still be safe when none of your teammates are there. They were all on left side. And so you get punished for it. And then flings down to ledge, lol. Oh wait, that was a weight breaker? Huh. Fascinating. Yeah, the zip cast is definitely difficult to deal with there. Okay. I think dropping down on right side is pretty good for Gal, in this position. Like if your teammates are already in the middle of pushing out left. Just because, your wall helps out a lot against something like a Splatana, while none of your other weapons really do well against it, so... If anything in your comp's gonna do this, it's Gal, so... Again, just a little bit too close to enemy paint there. Especially with a Splatana Flingza and Tetra. They're all weapons that sort of like sharking and then suddenly weapon. And then after you get like sort of surprised by that, you move back very far right here to pop Whale. I think this could have been popped a bit closer to mid, like if you moved left side instead of right to back up. Since I'm pretty sure you had a... Okay, I thought you had a teammate at left. You at least have paint on left side. So, having the Whale there might have given like another option to essentially hold mid and maybe push out of it instead of now you're having to reclaim mid because the Flings has been able to move up since you backed out. Good mid. But yeah, the E-leader wasn't the only one there, so abandoning it for left side. I'm assuming there was a call out there of like one on left on me. Yeah, I think it's like just the question of finding a healthy balance between like rushing in, staying back, or backing up, and staying around where you are and like slowly inching closer. Good wall. Like, I am in love with that wall. That's sort of like the playstyle that you want. Maybe a bit more forward because you have paint around tower now, but close enough. Good awareness. And now they're in zip cast. You can ignore that. Really good decision there. One thing here, all of you are on left side. On Mako, you really want left and right stack. So if anyone's going to take right stack, it's probably Tri or the Gal, and then the other one stays on the left. But Tri is fantastic on the left here. So maybe the Gal going right would be the choice. Because tower's really safe, you need to push through 55. And you see like the Tetras are already on right side. They're flanking, but they're on right, so... If this push gets stopped before lead, then that's probably why. Oh, 5 just... Whoa. Okay. I think, generally for Gal, it might just be a good, choice to, like, just start going right instead of like left unless absolutely no one is on tower. Which at that point, if you're just wanting a push to first checkpoint, that's fair because wall helps out, but it has very middling help moving through left side. And yeah, that Hail Mary did a good amount of work. I like that you're staying back here and just not dropping, getting paint down. Okay, your teammate jumped back on the right, so that's good. I think you taking tower there was another example of like sort of moving up without recognizing whether you have control or not, because the leader was still watching tower. Good pick. Honestly, getting a trade out of that is pretty good. Okay, here you're staying back a lot. I understand why, because you have lead and you're scared of them taking it back. But it's also like you're giving them free pain in mid. And you have two specials out, the wall and the bubbler. Or the wave break and bubbler. Oh, that shot. But yeah, so like right now, they already have control of mid because you sort of gave that up earlier. If you got picked like trying to contest mid, then they'd have a little more time they had to work through. And maybe Orbisms and 5 specials could have been used a bit better. Usually the first thing that I go for if we have like sort of mid control and want to get a push to second check, the first thing I go to is stack. So that jump was a little especially since you could charge up whale on top right and get some splash walls up against the Splatana. So yeah, special's very important for moving back in on disadvantage. And since you were halfway to whale and your junior and leader had just popped special, you're probably the one that would have whale. That was a bit of panic. You rushed in because you didn't want them to get leads, so you wanted to follow up on a pick, but they still have to push at 15 more points. You had a lot of time there. Jumping to the leader saves you almost no time here. And it also locks in your position, so... yeah, just keep that in mind. But yeah, really nice picks, good awareness on the certain points where like the Zipcaster was coming out or they were trying to flank. Those interactions definitely helped secure the win. And I think your mechanics are definitely good. I think it's just like using Gal's strengths a bit more with like being able to stay at the edge of like your range or like the edge of your wall. So like sort of like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I can sort of see Shot being like probably getting a bit more success with that playstyle with Shot. But yeah, so like if something's painted like this, then sometimes being around here is really nice because it can get a large amount of area here while still having a huge like, if they're right here, like at the edge of their ink, then they just barely hit you. While you have a lot more like, am I going to move back? Or am I going to move here to fight you? Or am I going to go here instead? Yeah. And then of course, if you have like a wall up, then you have, don't press Y, you idiot. You have a lot more space you can control, just watch the health of the wall. So yeah, you've played with this weapon long enough to know all that. But I think there's just like a lot of value in like Yeah, it doesn't seem as helpful to paint from here as it does to paint from, like, here. But it's a lot safer. And that safe paint is really helpful for just getting more whales. I can't press A until this finishes, man. But yeah, for getting more whales, getting more, like, better control, stuff like that. So I think I'll just watch through these without pausing at all, because I think I've given enough, and, like, the main things I'm noticing. So yeah, I'll just watch these through, put controller down, and yeah. Actually, there's one thing I don't want to happen. I don't want to watch through the respawns. Okay. Dropping down here is okay. I usually like painting this area because it doesn't help that much to not have it painted, because now you don't have an escape route. And it's not like they won't get control there eventually. That was also just awareness of, like, not seeing the Nautilus. I found that if they're going to look left, they're going to be painting it and going into it. So, like, me painting there doesn't do that much harm, but it also charges special for me. It gets, like, a way to back up, so. I think that was, like, a jump, and then just unfortunate Tetra 1v1. I like the wall there. Good for not dropping. That was fantastic not drop. Unfortunately, you drop right after I say that. But I think, like, that was really just waiting for your teammates to get ready to push in as a team. Oof. Good peg. You drop down to the nod. You get them, thankfully. It was a bit risky, especially since you were grabbing paint very quickly in front of them, so they had to move back eventually. And so I don't know if that was worth risking your whale to charge up for getting another push in. Yeah, Bingsuka up. Bingsuka did almost nothing because no one was really up front to push in with shots, and now it's forced to stay on the right side. I understand wanting to go for the flank though. I don't think it was necessarily a better decision, but just something to keep in mind. I think I did that exact plan mistake when I was in SoS myself, so that's pretty funny to see. Especially in Advantage, you want to keep track of the top right of the screen, where you can see when they respawn. And as soon as they respawn, like, keeping tabs of, like, which place that they might be coming from. And being a lot more aware of, like, what control you have and where they can be sharping coming back in. I think that pick was just getting chipped out by machine, but the one before that during the push was, you didn't know that they were already respawned. That was a risky jump into a trade, yeah. In Disadvantage, I just say never jump, because they're probably going to be pushing in. And then here comes the power soon. Yeah. So yeah, a couple of risky jumps there, and just a lot of fights being taken that were sort of limiting your ability to get back in. In a comp like this, with Gal, which has Whale, Junior, which has Wave Break, Charger, that also has Wave Break, and Junior, which has Bubble, the main thing to push in with is the Whale. Okay, you have a, okay, even with a shot with Trizuka, if they don't get any picks with it, then it doesn't really do that much. So you really want the Whale or Zuka, preferably both, but not necessarily, to push in. The Wavebreaker helps with that. Wave Break cannot single-handedly make a push. Yeah, it's a habit that you don't really notice that much. Just playing the game. Because, like, you think something's safe and then, oh well, it wasn't. I couldn't do much about that. But in reality, it's like, it's a lot about recognizing, like, the momentum of the opponent. Like, if they're moving in very quickly and taking space, like, at a fast rate, then they have a potential to even get where your backline is by the time you jump in. So 5 seconds is a long time. I'm just gonna pause again to say, like, you didn't really commit to either side here. And because of that, your teammates weren't really supported enough, and they had to move back. The only thing that really died here was X-Splosh. It's still a 3v3, but all of you are backed up on left side because, well, at least in part because, like, Junior can't really win 1v1s. The Splash wants to stay safe for Crab. And yeah. Oh, you're playing Splash here. Okay. But yeah, I still think it's pretty important to get Crab. Like, genuinely, I have sometimes played games where the only game plan I have is just stay alive until I Crab and then feed. And that is one of the case. You're also holding Crab for a while here. Splash charges it pretty quickly, and this is a spot where, like, it would help a lot to get it. You also back up to your spawn. I think it's just, like... That's fair. At least with Whale, I think, it's something where Crab can deter a lot of specials by forcing them into you instead of where they initially wanted to use it. So if they use a single whale at you, then that doesn't really matter since you can just strafe away from it as Crab. That would have been a perfect time to Crab. But you still waited until you got onto... You were just not using Crab. And because y'all sort of backed up, I think Crab is still very useful for getting or keeping space, at the very least. Like, if you Crabbed on right side, then they would not be here now. They'd be probably pushed further back on right side. Yeah, you won't get a push with it, but I don't think it's like Whale on Gal. Especially if you... I have, like, a hat that I sometimes wear that's like a main and sub of special charge. And genuinely, in some pushes, I've gotten 3 Crabs in a single push. Just because it's able to charge them pretty quickly between. It's not a special that you need to conserve as much, because it's such a... At the moment, it's also such a strong special that, like, even if it's not, like, it's a very strong special, so it has a lot of use cases to just control a wide area. And it also has, with Splash, it paints so well, so effectively, so quickly with Burst Bomb and its actual main weapon that it gets Crab in like 10 seconds. So. Also, you're flanking with Crab. You dropped with Crab. So I think a lot of your positioning here is very aggressive, which would be understandable if you did not have a special. If you die here, though, then you lose Crab and they get momentum off of that. So, yeah. I just want to give a moment of remembrance for that power clam. Like, someone Very unfortunate. Okay, you gotta pick. Your two teammates got chipped out, but they're not necessarily pushing you just yet. So I don't think you need to give that space up immediately on left. You're also leaving a large part of it unpainted. As a gal, I could sort of see it because your paint output's not great, but with Splash, that's painted in like 20 frames or something stupid like that. This is a good time to crab, probably, just to get them out and give you momentum. They're 2 down now, okay. Notice here that they're already backing up. So you could probably take this space with your main weapon, and then on far right side, use crab to actually make a push happen. Because yeah, you were able to get a pick, but you still, the far right side's still contested. Like that machine's still there, charging Booyah. They'd at least be far back or drop down. So. Yeah. Good bubble and rain on right side though. And the Booyah, that was pretty good. I like that you tried to go for that. You didn't get the pick, but that was really good. You're still leaving a lot of base paint unpainted. That like might come into play in disadvantage. The whale and their crab and their booyah coming out. They're all really early though, so. Yep, and there's the crab on far left. The splash was on right side with crab. You saw it there, and I think you tunnel visioned on their crab on left side and forgot about the splash on right. Just be aware of like who is also more possible to pick off, because the splash had nowhere to. If the splash fell back, then they would drop down, and that's huge for getting your right side control. If the splash on left backs up, then you don't lose that. You don't win that much extra space because they're still sort of in a crab tank. I think one big thing to talk about is so if you're in a fight with someone, if you force someone to back up just because they don't want to die, if they have to drop down to back up away from you, then they have to climb all of that again in order to get that space again, and that is so valuable. It's a lot more useful than in a flat space, even though even flat spaces, it's still helpful to just push someone back, because even if they don't get picked off, then yeah, you still charge special, you still get momentum for your team. And they just sort of use the same flank on right again. Sort of just like painting up before you move up. I'd say it's more important as Splash Gal, simply because Splash can paint so effectively that it can afford to spend like a few extra seconds, like an extra seconds really, to paint up an entire area. With Gal, it takes more like 2 seconds or so, so not as helpful, but we're still seeing, you're sort of like switching side to side on this map, which is fair. I do it a decent amount as well, but actually, you're playing Splash, not Gal, so that's understandable. Just note that you're leaving a lot of paint there. Like, you look back to right side and notice all of that you sort of left. I think initially doing that for the Tri-Stringer was good. Just note that opponents can move up with that if they notice you like getting out of position. No! That's unfortunate, but yeah, just Crab's the dumb special right now, just take cover from it, it's not worth it. Especially if it's up for that long, you just have to wait a couple of seconds. Like, if you contest it at this as it starts, I think that's a little more understandable, just because, like, it has a lot more effect if you don't. Or you have to stay back away from it for a longer time. But, yeah. Hey, Crab, how's your morning going? And then that was just dropping that without paint, or like knowing if the opponent was in range of you when you drop down. But yeah, I think that was the last game, so thought the wall would be enough. Do you mean the wall on, like, sort of where chargers can climb up on Scorch Gorge, or? Like, sort of left, like, box that you can jump on to score clams if you're pushing? In any case, yeah. I think in general it's just like doing a lot more of like painting like this, slowly just moving up. And then you can move up a bit farther with wall just because like it defends you from a lot of this. Oh yeah, okay, I get what you mean from that. Oh, okay. Fair enough. But yeah, so there's also like a lot of benefit in just staying in the same area and just repainting over. If the opponent's contesting like right here-ish, like yeah, it's unsafe. But yeah, wall for that. And if they see you like holding space like this, if they aggress you in an unsafe way, then you can always punish that. If they aggress you safely, and like you're overwhelmed, you have the wall so you have time to back up. Otherwise, you could just kind of chill here for a little bit. There's no harm in staying in the same place for a couple of seconds. Even in neutral, because yeah, you're not really gaining that much extra space, but you're also not losing space, and that's pretty important. And remember, if you get splatted, of course, that makes you lose a lot more space than just staying alive and backing up. But staying alive in the same place gives you more than staying alive and backing up. But it also helps you charge this thing a little more. So yeah. Those were like the main things, and then like sort of teammate awareness to see like if you're with a teammate, just sort of staying around them or like not abandoning them. Super jumps, being a bit more mindful of when you're an advantage or not. I think that covers the main points. So, yeah. Alright. Yeah, if you have any questions as well, feel free to just ask in DMs later. I'll have this VOD uploaded later. So, until then, if anyone's seeing this VOD and wants to contact me as a coach, echo #7956 on Discord, at starry_echo_ on Twitter, and to see more streams like this, starry_echo. Yeah, so we're going to probably switch gears to coaching a team, and they're run in Little Squidly. So this was a lower level tournament. But yeah, I'll get more into that when we actually start that stream. So these can be 2 separate videos. Yeah, it'll be here soon. So yeah.